Hello, my name is Francis Fox, and I'm a trained government remote viewer. Also trained in all the psychic abilities that all human beings have. When they're developed to the max, they're called superpowers, or they're called miracles, or they're called, oh yeah, martial artists can break a board with their hand or a concrete block. Yeah, they can do that because they did all that practice. It's really abilities that we have in the other dimensions. And if you can keep your focus and keep going and get out of your own way, you can have superpowers too. But I can see from what I have behind me that I'm going to be talking about a particular superpower. I don't know why the phone is ringing. I don't accept phone calls, but let's ignore it. I have the map of the United States, and I'm going to go over it. But for the first time, I sketched Russia on the 14th. And I don't want to make anybody nervous. I'm not going anyplace. I'm here. This is where I live. But I thought it might be interesting. The map looked really good, except for where there was that earthquake several weeks ago. It's hot there, which means too much fire, which means there can be another earthquake. So, all of you now start to practice up your superpowers and visualize a big block of ice in that place. Let's see if I have the map here so that you'll know where you should be visualizing. Huh. If I could see, it would be a really good thing. No, that's Europe. Nope, that's Washington, D.C. Okay, well, you want to see Europe? Nope, that's not it either. Okay, I'm not gonna waste your time. I sketched Russia right here, lower right-hand side of the screen. I sketched the protection of the Galactic Federation, which is also in today's map and has been many times on the US map. But Russia's different. There's a third eye there. What does that mean? They do a lot of spying? Come on. Anybody do more spying than the US government? I don't think so. And it's on our dollar bills. Look at it. The graphic at the top left and the middle right. That's the dollar bill or the $20 bill. I don't know which or all of them. I don't really know. So Russia has it having to do with the ascension process. The third eye, contrary to what you have heard, has to do with wisdom. When your third eye is open, you can see everything. And when you can see everything, you know what's going on. You understand that if somebody commits a murder, there's obviously something the matter with that person. And then if a lot of people commit murder, then there's obviously something the matter with society. Your lens is wider. In psychology, they do it a little bit when you take your kid to therapy. The psychologists, or at least years ago, because I haven't done that kind of therapy for 30 years, they'll tell you to leave the kid at home. You and your husband come, we'll talk. Because they've widened their lens and they've understood that the kid is a symptom. Okay, so we're in this country, the United States, everybody's afraid of the third eye. You're afraid of wisdom? Maybe it's a little bit like cannabis. Cannabis is a sacred herb that reduces fire, and they say its only symptom when you take it, side effect, is paranoia. It's not paranoia. It gently opens up the veils between dimensions and you can see more. At which time, if you haven't purified your house or your liver or whatever, you may be able to see the spirits. At which time you'll get paranoid because before you did the cannabis, there was no spirit there. No, sir. You were not privy to that extra information. So Russia has a third eye. Now, Russia didn't tell me to do this. I did this on my own, my usual mapping. And there's a third eye there. Let's go over the United States map and let's see what's there other than it's missing the third eye, which a lot of people would We don't want to go there. No, I'm sure you don't. Because do you know how much you can hide when people's third eyes are limping, like with too much fluoride, which basically kills the third eye? Okay, so let's do the map. Let me not get into preaching. Okay, this is the map. Looking great. Double protection, Galactic Federation, huge triangle in the Gulf of America, which creates tremendous stability. The words that came out, Trump is ready for whatever. And there's an enthusiasm there. Mexico is grateful. You can't see it. It's the lower left-hand corner. I don't know what part of California this is, but if you look at the top left, it says a pocket of hell. I don't know who lives there, what is there. I have no idea. I very specifically do not put the states on the map because I want not to be influenced by anything that I've heard, that I think. I just want to sketch intuitively. So we need to look that up and see what's going on there. And then we have an X, and I do believe that's where Kansas is. And the word ghosts, and then ghosts coming out of closets. Well, Kansas is where they have that military installation that would appear to me, from all the information I'm getting, is the center of all the mind control stuff. So ghosts coming out of closets, could that be trained assassins? I don't know. Excuse me 1 second. I'll call you back, Dave. I'm in a chat. Thank you. I'm going to sound terrible, but that's my stockbroker. Went ahead and invested a nice sum of money in Tesla. Um, and I told him I needed to make sure it happened today. I did 2 days ago also. So I'm just investing in what I believe in and investing in a company where the owner believes in the product and loves people. And that's a magic formula for this golden age that we're coming into. So anyway, back to the map. Um, the whole thing with Kansas. And we have the Wizard of Oz that has been revived. And the Wizard of Oz is a baseline program for the heavy duty mind control victims. And the four, Dorothy and the Scarecrow, those are all sub personalities that have training. And if you just get a little bit intuitive, you'll be able to figure out the rest. So what's the issue? You know what? I think I'm not going to discuss it now because I think I'm going to ask the dolphins. Why does Russia have a third eye there and we don't? We put it on a dollar bill. We insist that we follow the Constitution, da, 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 da. And I think it's the same people who put the third eye on the dollar bill, and then we accuse them of being Freemasons or whatever. But guess what? Those people have a ton of information. I don't know which one of the group it is that's I think it's the Freemasons. But the Cuban mafia, always, when they were going to follow me, always had on shirts, blue and white stripes. Sometimes also a red stripe. Very contemporary, but still blue and white stripes. And I used to only wear blue. It turns out that blue and white stripes is what's on, used to be always on pajamas. Well, what do you use pajamas for? To go to sleep. The blue and white stripes are a Freemason, do we call it a technique, a secret, to put people to sleep. Now, what do they do in addition to having the blue and white stripes? Maybe if you're a mind control victim and you see the blue and white stripes, then you automatically go into sleep mode, or a part of you goes into sleep mode. Anyway, so we deny the third eye, but we insist with our guns that the Constitution is where we have to be. But I think it was the same people that put that there. So we need to kind of get our act together on that, which means we really need to do some research, which means you have to widen your lens. If you widen your lens, then you'll go, oh my God, that is wisdom. That's our dollar. That's our money. And that means wisdom. This is a good thing. Well, it's not a good thing for those of you that are paranoid and those who do not want to have that extra information. Okay? So, continuing on. Last night, I worked with the Mantrista movement on Chicago. We didn't get a lot of people there. It was several hundred, but it wasn't, we usually have more. I'm not sure if certain people that are just tourists in my movement thought it was going to be the business as usual. Chicago, I said in the last working session that we had on clearing Chicago so that there would be a dramatic decrease in violence, I said that Chicago was built on top of an Indian burial ground. So let me read you. And I don't know anything about Chicago. And when I read things, I'm not supposed to know anything. But I saw, because we saw so many spirits under in the subspace of Chicago, under Chicago. Why so many spirits? And then I said there were tribes that were fighting each other, and those are the spirits. It's like building on top of an Indian burial ground. So I did look up Chicago and tribes, and this is what it says. Chicago is on the traditional ancestral lands of indigenous peoples, particularly the Council of the Three Fires. The area was a significant gathering and trade hub for numerous other nations. While these tribes were forcibly removed from their ancestral lands by the mid 1900s, their descendants live there today in places like Oklahoma and Chicago. So, and they list the names of all, I'll read them out. Native, historically numerous American tribes lived in what is now Illinois, including the Illinois Confederation, Willinequek, Sac, Fox, Kickapoo, Miami, Potawatomi, Ho Chunk, also called Winnebago, Shawnee, and Chickasaw. That's a lot of tribes. And they were at war with each other. And the lands were taken from them. And I'm sure they didn't just say, can we please, I'm sure the white people didn't come and say, can we please have the land? Just get the hell out of here. Even though they're yours ancestrally, I'm sure that there were killings and those souls were still there. When you have, it's like everybody knows you don't build your home on top of an Indian burial ground. Well, this was an Indian burial ground for several Indian nations. So it makes sense. But the trick is we found something underneath. We went all the way down, down, down underneath Chicago. We ended up in the coccyx, which is, whoa, this is, I didn't know cities could have a coccyx, which means the United States has one. And it was like sewage. And then there was another layer underneath. And that layer, the military has a name for it. It's called subspace. And it's where the grays are supposed to be. Now, how do I know that? I don't really know that. I'm quoting a book I read 30 years ago and I'm trying to find it again. And it was by somebody who denied that he was a mind control victim, but he was military. And he knew an awful lot. And he talked about subspace. So I'm requiring that everybody that's working with me on Chicago and in their homes, because in our homes we also have subspace. It's like a hiding place for really, really bad energy. We cleaned it up, and then the energy started to spiral gold and do all sorts of wonderful things. Well, okay, so then if you believe that, I have a bridge I can sell you. No. As I tell all my followers, what we see is really good. But if that does not play out on the physical dimension, then we didn't do our job well. So I expect for this to play out. We didn't know Chicago had a coccyx, which is where the biggest traumas are held. And nobody does therapy on it because nobody knows that our energy system goes down that far. Nobody knows about the subspace except some military people. And there's ETs hiding there. And we clean that all. So I expect for there to be some huge changes. And as I told my followers last night, if there isn't, then we have to go back in and see what are we missing. But I do expect some big changes. And here's the trick. What was causal? Causal was the trashing or all the wars that killed people, and there was never a purification, and there was not a process to send those people to the light. So basically, Chicago has been on top of a huge Indian burial ground, which we believe that we cleaned up. It certainly looked like it was actually a spectacular session. I had on a necklace that's made out of metal, and towards the end of the session, I just could feel something. And when I have it right there. When I took off the necklace and I looked at it, and the necklace is like they glued together different pieces of metal. It's interesting. I'll show you. This is it. So it felt funny. I took it off, and then all of a sudden, you see that thing sticking out here? Here? That got lifted up, metal lifted up while it was on my neck. And then if you look at it, and I don't know if that you're going to be able to see it, but underneath it is a clock, and it says 12. Now I'm going to push this down. I had never seen the clock. So this got lifted up by the spirit world to show me that I hit 12. 1 and 2 is 3, and that's my number. 3 is a number of joy. It's also, somebody said, when the clock hits 12, Cinderella has to leave. And she gets the slipper, da, 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 da. And my life is kind of like Cinderella in that I was adopted. The stepmother raised me, and I did have 2 stepsisters, and everybody hated me, and da, 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 da. So, and this was when we finished with Chicago, we were very pleased. Let me show you the video that we used to work with the coccyx. And you should go to my YouTube and use this video and do a mantra that you want, especially having to do with something you've been dealing with for a long time. Actually, I should get my group to do it for the United States, but let me show you. I'm very proud of this. Those are the swirling dervishes. It's a spiritual dance, but we added the sound, the frequency of 988, which is the frequency of the coccyx, which not so coincidentally is the frequency of the third pyramid in Egypt. The point at the top, that frequency is 988. It's a pyramid pointed up. Your coccyx is a pyramid pointed down. Both of them have the same frequency, 988. I don't know anything about frequencies, but what I can tell you is what the dolphins told me. When you can vibrate at 988, you're vibrating with the third pyramid in Egypt, and you're vibrating at a frequency that has to do with magic. Is that incredible? Anyway, we did that video with that sound, which is very irritating, but not when you know what it is, and when you're actually doing a mantra and working with it and you're seeing yourself spinning and spinning and spinning. It is magical. So that's how we worked subspace and the coccyx of Chicago. So let's trolley on. It was very exciting. And where is it? And this was a happening, a miraculous happening that you can get a piece of metal to lift up in the middle. This piece of metal lifted up. Believe me, I didn't put it on that way. I didn't even know that could lift up. And there you have the number 12. See it? Oh, you can see it's super now. I didn't know that was there because this has always been down. Okay, moving along. I want to wish Kash Patel a lot of luck. I don't know how he's going to do this. You cannot have the level of conspiracy within the FBI for as many decades as it's been podrido, which means rotten to the core, and then come in. And I like Kash Patel. I don't know how he's going to do it. So, whatever help anybody can give him, including mantras, I guess maybe we should do a session because it is the FBI that basically spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to have my reputation trashed. Now, why didn't they just kill you, Francis? Well, that's pretty simple. They spent a ton of money and time perfecting my ability to acquire extra information and to open my third eye. And if they kill me, they don't have access to that anymore. So if we get me either into an insane asylum, classified as mentally ill, having everybody think that I'm like into prostitution at my age, give me a break. Um, all these crazy things, then I can still function. I can still be physically alive. They can still access my mind. You know what I just realized? That's what they did in Egypt. In Egypt, they would take the pharaohs, they wouldn't, the pharaoh would die, and they would take such care of the body because they still wanted to have access to whatever it is that the pharaoh could give them, which I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Because if today the US military knew how to do that, they would have killed me, kept my body, and then accessed me. Darn, that's what my handler did to a certain extent. He cut a piece of me, a subpersonality, and had it in a sarcophagus with some black magicians, I believe in the island of Margaritas, which is Venezuela, but it's right off the coast. And he's FBI. I think he's still alive. I don't think he'll be alive much longer. Whoa. So maybe he learned how to do that, but leaving the physical vehicle alive, which the Egyptians would do because they wouldn't get rid of the physical vehicle. They immediately started with oils and all sorts of other things. I wasn't, by the way, the only person. When I saw that part of me, which you would call a spirit, but the Mayans call a subpersonality, I wasn't the only one in that place in Islas Margaritas. There were other people there, parts of other people there. Honestly, you guys need to find out a lot more. Mm. Gossip? No. Information that because we have not been allowed to be spiritually sophisticated and we love the founding fathers and then we accuse somebody of being a Freemason and putting that third eye there, you got to quit with all this conspiracy stuff. You have to find out what's being hidden, and then you have to find out why are they hiding it, and then you have to find the gold within that, which is basically what I have done. I recognized at some point that the people that do black magic, curses, and spell work, they know a lot about creating reality. The things that they can make people do, we need to learn from that, which is what I'm doing. So I'm teaching it under white magic, and everybody around me knows that if I catch a whiff that they're doing black magic anywhere near me, an apology is not enough. It basically means that you don't care about trashing people's free will, which is the number one thing that God gave us was free will. Okay. Now they're looking for the how COVID-19 started. That's great. So I'm going to tell you a story and then I'm dropping it. When I did group therapy and we were four females in the 90s, our psychologist specialized in victims, prisoners of war, and victims. I don't remember what the other thing was, but people that were politically tortured, whatever. That was the psychologist that was in charge of this group of 4 women. I was one of them. The day I left, they never held another session with these women. I understood that that was built around me and was heavily supervised to find out what happens when mind control victims start to wake up and go into therapy, which was happening at that point, which would have been in the 90s, 92, 93. Um, at one point, I don't know what happened, but we as a group, and we probably did not tell the therapist because there was a lot of things we didn't tell her because we didn't think she was up to it. Didn't matter. Victims of torture and prisoners of war. That was her specialty. You should look her up. Her husband, she told me, her husband was one of the agents that found Che Guevara, and she's my therapist. Talk about confusion. So we're as a group, and I don't think we said it in front of the therapist, but I don't know how we got onto the subject of AIDS. And I don't know who said it first, but each one of us remembered having been given an injection so that we wouldn't get AIDS. Now, that's not fair. Come on. You have a solution to this? Well, maybe they are the ones that created the AIDS. That's been said a lot of times. So maybe you should track those people and you'll end up with something pointed at the people who did the COVID. That was my gossip. Isn't that beautiful gossip? We are going into a holy war. At least that's what Alex Jones says. He's selling t-shirts that say holy war. We can't do that. First place, this is a different age. And I'm going to remind you again, the holy war, and I looked it up when I said it the last time, just in case, don't want to make a mistake. The Crusades were the holy war. The Crusades were sent by the Vatican. Now, who likes the Vatican? Today, 0 people, unless they like art. Who trusts the Vatican? 0. So the Vatican were always the same. They weren't great, and then they went south. This was them from day one. They set up the holy wars. They sent people on something called the Crusades to the Mideast. And in the Mideast, the Crusaders would tell everybody they had to convert to Jesus and pray to Jesus, and Jesus was their God. Meanwhile, they'd never heard of Jesus Christ. I'm not sure the Crusaders knew their language to be able to say it. And then they would kill them because they wouldn't convert and turn themselves over to Jesus. That's the holy war. And Alex Jones wants us to be in another holy war. And from what I'm seeing, there's too much of a throwing around of the Bible thing. Jesus Christ is good. Jesus Christ was a shaman. The Bible was written 300 years after Christ died. Now, I can't remember a conversation I had yesterday. And a lot of people can't remember what they said 5 minutes ago or what somebody said to them 5 minutes ago. Okay, so before they were mentally more clear because there wasn't the Wi-Fi, which basically destroys your mind. But 300 years, and it was supervised by the Vatican that we don't trust, we never trust, we now know they were god awful. The people from the Mideast didn't come over here. We went over there. So we're going to go into another holy war at the rate people are throwing the Bible around? I think so. Now, I had a boyfriend years ago who was an evangelist. He didn't know that the Bible was written 300 years after Christ died. He did not know that. It was a shocker to him. I'm not sure he ever recuperated. What he would say to me was he knew that Jesus loved me because I was obviously an infidel. If you are following or promoting a religion, you need to know the history and you need to know it. Do not be, I quote the Bible a lot because there's some substance in there, but I'm not going to be quoting where they tell you to kill your kid. There is substance in there, like with the whole thing with the radiation. I knew that had to be in the Bible because it's too big an issue. It's taking down the planet, the frequencies. And it was there. And what it says is basically that in the future, which is now, there will be something hot. A cell phone heats up your head. And the spirits will be whispering lies into people's ears. That's what's going on. But you have to be really careful about this whole thing, because the Holy War was somebody wanted to acquire, the Vatican wanted to reclaim Holy Land. The Vatican owned Holy Land at some point. Okay, so you have to ask yourself this question every step of the way. If you're going to quote the Bible, you need to make sure that you're quoting something very specific, that you can back up, that you know the history. We're going to end up in a holy war. Now, there's a lot in the Bible that none of us would want to have anything to do with, and that apparently is okay. I'm sure there's a lot in the sacred books of the people that we want to go to holy war against that they wouldn't agree with either. So I think people need to do the homework, and people need to stop with the promoting of war. We are entering the age of Aquarius. We're entering the golden age. Neither one is compatible with war. So those who go into war so easily are basically trashing either the country that they're leading, or the institutions that they're leading, or the group that they're leading, because those energies are not compatible with what is going to be supported from here forth. Community is being supported, not war. All of us are too frustrated because the planet has too much fire, and the predictions, the planet will end in fire because there's too much of the fire element. Fire element makes people angry, frustrated, makes them emotionally, they lose control physically, they start to have physical violence, and then emotional violence, physical violence, and then they start to kill people, and then at the end, basically they kill themselves. If they really don't prefer not to kill somebody, they'll go ahead and commit suicide. That's excess fire. We all have excess fire. We're all frustrated. That is being weaponized. All of our frustrations, and we're all frustrated because there's a collapse of a paradigm. Everybody's insecure, there's too much fire, all the rest of that. The bad guys are weaponizing that frustration and pointing it in a direction, and then creating events so that our weaponized frustration, which are astral particles of fire, which are very powerful, they're a force, and they're telling us what to point our frustrations at. Somebody's got to get a grip on this. Now, if I can get somebody at a highness level, Trump, Elon, to work with me, having to do with getting the elements balanced in terms of the whole country, getting the frequencies, auditory frequencies that will help to soothe the frequency, audio frequency of Wi-Fi, we can get a grip on this. That's not happening yet. I still can't go out to my backyard. Now even my dog won't go out to my backyard. The Bible is not Jesus. Jesus is not the Bible. Jesus never saw the Bible. If you knew about Jesus, you would know that everything that he did was outdoors. Let's start with that. He never pointed fingers. So anytime you get somebody that's pointing fingers, and right now we're pointing fingers a lot, you're not doing what Jesus wants. So anybody who wants to say Francis is talking really bad, no. You have to do your homework. My living master, who was Argentinian, taught me you can't talk about something unless you know what you're talking about. You have to define the words first. What's the definition? And then you need to know. And I'm not really good in history, even though it was my minor, but you need to know what's the background. So what's the background of the third eye that Russia's ascension process, which looks really good, even though they have two hot spots, but we do too. They have one that's really hot, where that last earthquake was. Why do they have the third eye, which represents wisdom to everybody except the people that are into conspiracies and are limited to the physical dimension? Why do they have that and we don't? I want us to have that, just like the founding fathers wanted. They wanted to have that third eye, which means wisdom. That third eye, by the way, and I'm not going to go into the whole explanation. That third eye is in the solar plexus chakra, which is where all your digestive organs are. So everybody's digestion is shot to hell at this point. Um, that is the chakra that channels personal power. So if you have that in the Russia ascension process, but you don't have it in the United States ascension process, we don't have personal power. And I would say that's true. I don't know anything about what's going on in Russia. I just sketched, and then I saw that and I said I want to know a little bit more about that. We deny whoever put that on the dollar bill. Anytime you see the third eye, people are like, unholy. No. Um, I would like for that to be understood and incorporated in our belief system for what it is, which is wisdom, and that's been known for over 6,000 years. So I think that's about it. So we need to check out that place there we go, in Kansas, where we have ghosts coming out of closets. I think that what that means is they have, and maybe that's where, oh God, I don't want somebody to, I don't want more people to come at me, but I think coming out of closets, now that I look at that and I see, and I believe that's where the military base is, the whole mind control Wizard of Oz, Kansas, so much fun. Coming out of closets, I think it means the mind control um, victims are being allowed out of their closets, and I'm sure they're being given very specific instructions. So, anyway, I'm going to try and look up the assassination statistics for Chicago, because I honestly, if you had been there and seen what we saw last night, you would be so pleased, Trump. You would be so pleased. Because if we can do that for a city, we can do it for the whole country. And I will look up that book where they talk about subspace, the military guy, even though he says he's not. And the fact that there are grays, aliens, little grays. I'm going to try and find what book it is. I think it had the word psychic in it. Psychic warrior. It wasn't psychic warrior. It was another one. Okay, that's it. Thank you for joining me, and we will be back. Thank you.